few things before this video started. First of all, thank you for clicking on it. I really appreciate it. I wanted to point out something so that none of you throw questions at me like what's going on or anything like that. I am doing this prosthetic on my arm. I had a dark time in my life, and I did not handle my depression and anxiety really well, but I can gladly say that I am well over that. I am not doing things like that anymore. I just wanted to clarify this to y'all so that you guys, you know, you aren't worried or anything, because I'm perfectly fine. I'm like literally the happiest I've ever been, and I'm good, you know, I'm great. So I hope that you guys like this video. Thank you so much for clicking on it again. Yeah, thank you guys so much for your support, and let's get to the tutorial. So to create this wound, you're going to need a few things, and one of those things is Synwax, which is a modeling wax that will be the base of this whole effect. Now you don't need necessarily the same kind that I have, but this is what I used. You're also going to need some tools to remove the wax from the jar and to sculpt it. I'll be using two different ones that have opposing ends. I have a liquid foundation that matches my skin tone pretty well, and it doesn't really matter the quality of it as long as it's the right color for you. And you honestly may not need this one, but I added some powder foundation too that also matched my skin tone. To apply the liquid foundation, I have an odd shaped sponge, but any sponge will do. You're going to need some sort of makeup that will color the wound. For this, I found that eyeshadows and contouring kits worked best for me, but it's really up to what you prefer. Of course, you'll need some small brushes to apply said coloring and relatively small ones to fit in the hard areas of the wax. Setting powder or translucent powder is very important to reduce the shine and make things less sticky, because sometimes that will happen. You will need a brush to apply the powder, and of course some fake blood. I am honestly not a huge fan of this brand though. It's far too syrup-like and sidetracks from realism for me, but it's not that bad if you're just starting. A few smallish brushes to apply the blood, and some needle tack things. You don't need these if you'd like to leave the wound fully open, but I liked the effect. These are pretty small. I think that longer ones would look better, but this is what I had. You'll need a rag or paper towels just to clean up any mess you may have made, and lastly, I suggest newspaper to keep from staining anything. Before I start the actual application of each product, I wanted to share a mistake I made to save you from doing the same. The first time I did this, I just straight up put the wax on my arm, which really isn't that bad. It just made it that much more difficult to remove the wax from my skin when it was finished. This being my second time, and as you may have noticed on the screen, I'm applying Vaseline to my arm in hopes of the wax coming off much easier this time. But what I didn't realize was that I could not even attach the wax to my own arm. No matter what amount of Vaseline was applied, the wax would not stick correctly. However, I kept trying and eventually forced the wax to stick to my arm, but throughout the process it kept coming apart and sliding everywhere, so I just took it all off and restarted, this time with 0% of Vaseline. So I hope you take my advice and you avoid Vaseline, but if you are afraid that you're gonna have a rough time removing the wax, which honestly didn't bug me too much, I suggest waiting until the end of the wound, removing all that you can, and then using Vaseline or oil to remove the remains of the wax. Now let's get on with the tutorial. Alright, let's begin. Now the first thing you need to use is Synwax or any other modeling wax you may have. A really quick review on Synwax for you guys. I actually enjoy it. Sometimes it's difficult to smooth onto my skin, but this is also the only modeling wax I've ever owned, so I have no idea what else is out there. Overall though, I'd give it an 8 out of 10 because I really do love what this product does, but the first time I used this I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't warm it up enough, and it was really challenging getting it to do what I wanted. But over time I perfected it and learned how to use it correctly. When removing the wax from the cup, ensure that you use a strong tool, because if you use a thin or weak tool, the wax is actually strong enough to bend it. My tool's bent a few times, but I didn't really mind it, although I would suggest finding and using a stronger tool. Remember that once you get the amount desired out of the cup, to warm it very well with your hands. If you don't do this, the wax won't work the way you'd like. You could even use a hairdryer to warm it for you. The wax should lose its toughness and feel something like sticky Play-Doh. Remember to have your arm clean with no traces of Vaseline, then roll and pull the wax into a long strip to fit your arm. To apply the wax, gently press the strip onto your arm and press down, pulling on the edges to just stick it on real good. Once you stuck it on, you can continue to press and pull the edges to eliminate any seams or lines, smoothing it onto your skin to make it look like it's part of your skin. Here is what an acceptable finish to the application will look like. Use a sharp tool now. I will be using both ends. Start an incision in the wax by cutting all the way down. Don't worry about any excess coming off because this will happen, so just lay it aside. Now begin to create openings in the wound by scraping out pieces of the wax. Again, just lay the excess aside and be careful not to accidentally poke yourself. As you scrape pieces out, create a realistic effect by opening the wound even further. The result may look something like this. If it doesn't, don't worry. Adding makeup and blood does a huge difference. To make the wax look more like my skin, I am adding some liquid foundation and dabbing it all over the outside of the wound. You don't have to do this step, but I am adding powder foundation as well to match colors better and reduce shine. Now grab your eyeshadows, contour kit, or body paint to start adding injury-like colors to the wound. You're going to start off with a small brush and a black color. You're going to fill in the very bottom of the opening to make the cut look very deep. Make sure you don't see any light patches in the center of the cut. Going in with a tannish color, fill in the flappy parts of the wound. With a lighter color, brush over the outer parts of the cut to continue adding realism. Also, if you are struggling in making the end smooth onto your skin, use a hairdryer to make it easier to blend by heating it up. With a burnt orange, color the flappy things again to add a look of irritation. Here's the fun part, blood. Pour some fake blood onto newspaper and use a small paintbrush to start filling the insides of the cut. Be sure to have a cup of hot water handy to clean out the brush. You can add little bits of blood on the outside to make it look grungier. I also found that using my finger wasn't so bad to make the blood thin and blotchy. Use a small brush again to add some more burnt orange color to the very outside of the flaps. To create a blood drip effect, start at the opening of the cut and trail blood down with a small paintbrush. I did the same thing on the other side, just not with a trail. Now I'm adding some more darker than skin tone color with a makeup sponge. Because I kind of made the ends of the wax more visible, I am using blood to hide it. This is my final product before I add the pins. You also don't have to add the pins if you'd like it to remain an irritated cut. Be very careful when inserting the needles because it's not hard to poke yourself, but push the pin through one flap to the other flap. Again, as I said before, I do believe that longer needles would look better than these tiny short ones that I have, but this is what I had, and if you could find longer ones, or maybe you could use nails or something, I believe that that would look a lot better. Be careful as pushing the needles a certain way can shift the wax, so if that happens, just push it or pull it back. Now to finish your product, you're going to add blood to the needle points or the balls of the needle, but this is literally the last thing that you're going to do. And here you go, voila, here's your creepy wound cut flappy thing with needles in it. How lovely. Thank you guys for watching this a lot, I really appreciate it, but please, if you do this to yourself, do not convince people that it's real because that can lead to very, very bad things, and I don't want anything terrible to happen to any of you. But, you know, if you did it, have fun with it. I hope you do great, and thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the removal. Noodle Poot. He's so cute. His name is Noodle. Isn't it? Isn't it?